Hi, welcome to You Make Music TV. Yes, I'm not sitting in my cozy chair today. I brought it downstairs and I didn't feel like bringing it up today, so I got another pink stool I'm sitting on. No fear, it's pink, everybody. If you can't tell, that's my favorite color. But let's move on. I just saw Bernie Sanders killing it in Brooklyn, New York, with Zohran Mamdani on his oligarchy tour. And I just want to say things, and I'm not embarrassed to say things. Just so you know, I've always shared things with friends, family, anybody. Because there's no rights or wrongs. We do things, we move on. They might work out, they might not work out. So the reason why I bring that up is I'm getting some comments. Thank you so much. And I really enjoy them, and I enjoy replying to some of them. I wish I had more time. I'm a one-woman show. I record, research, write, get ready to record. I don't wake up like this. Well, I really do. No. And yeah, I do all the editing and the clipping, and I freaking love it. And when I saw that Bernie and Zohran killed it yesterday, I guess it was, in Brooklyn, I was just wanted to deliver that news instead of the bad news of Washington, D.C. takeover, and now actually Chicago's getting takeover. And again, I'm not against low crime at all. I'm a mother of 3, 2 boys and a girl. And I am all for safety, but it's, again, the way our administration is going about it is super dangerous. It's encouraging more of us Americans to lash out and step it up to, fight back and be, resistance towards this. And it's kind of like okaying our kids that are kind of lost, that, when you're that certain in-between age, that this is okay to act this way and get your way. And it's really not. And I understand they're getting their way, but it's really not the way to go about things. We must continue humanity as we move along. We just simply must. We can't go on this way, or we won't have humanity anymore. So let's get into this with Bernie. And really, it's not about Bernie today. It's about my full respect for Bernie and Zohran, because being a mom of 3 kids, now in their 20s, I'm so happy my last one turned 20 last year, because then I'd have to say it longer way. So I have 2 boys and my girl's in the middle. And we've had politics in our house before. That's not a secret. We talk about everything. Science is important in this house. Women's rights are important in this house. Kindness, everything. Having fun, music, hockey, ice hockey, everything's, we have a lot of things that are important to us. And I was a housewife. And the reason why I say is because I call myself a retired housewife now. And you could say, oh, what's that mean? You're a retired housewife. Well, first of all, I just want to say I was forced into early retirement because my kids grew up, and 2 of them moved out, and that's okay. It's time, because I really don't want to cook and clean anymore. Although I don't know how long I could stay in my studio today, because it's my turn to cook. And I know it doesn't sound like feminist, but I am. I'm a housewife feminist at the highest respect, because I wanted to stay home with my kids. I wanted to raise them. I wanted to be with them. And sure, our family is not perfect by any means at all because of that. I've had my teenage challenges with them totally, and but I would never change a thing. So I just want to preempt everything with that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes in the past, during the last, I guess, 10 years of my life, more or less, I've been changing, and I'm at the end of my 50s now, and, that comes with change. And during this time, my kids were probably like in their teen years at the beginning of this or in the middle of them, and we had different feelings about things. I come from a certain background that's different than their background, obviously, and things are just, we feel different, as a family of 5 in this house. And so one thing I want to mention is when my 2 youngest kids were in high school, and they're only 2 years apart, they were talking to me about Bernie Sanders. Now, before then, I had no idea who he was. So I started looking into him. And I was such tunnel feminist, tunnel feminist. I think I just made that up. But I was just so gung-ho on a woman being president or something in power that I just, kind of not block things out, but I was just so for women in the public eye, in government and everything, since I could remember, because I grew up as a musician in rock and roll, and I formed all girl bands twice, which isn't easy to do. All the girls, we all played our all instruments, and my first band I formed, we played heavy metal like Judas Priest, Aerosmith, Dokken, Bon Jovi. And then the second band I formed in my 20s that were all girls, we played cover bands, that original songs that were really heavy. I loved Ozzy Osbourne, Perry Mason's album at the time. So we kind of sounded chunky like them and commercial Metallica. So anyway, we all come from different backgrounds, but we all love things. So when my kids told me Bernie, I was just like, why can't it be a woman? Because I remember my English teacher telling me that Geraldine Ferrara was running for vice president on the ticket that year. And I was like, oh my gosh, a female being vice president, that'd be awesome, And then finally, all these decades later, I actually got to see Kamala Harris as the vice president. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see her as the president because I feel like we'd be in a total different reality right now. I don't know if you ever saw Wonder Woman series when you were younger, if you were my age, but when once in a while they would show Wonder Woman on the planet she came from. And in this planet, I was a big fan. I dressed up for her for Halloween a few times. I always wanted to fly, be a Battlestar Galactic woman fighter, And so when Wonder Woman went back to her island, it was so peaceful, and there was flowers all over the place, and it was basically women, but there were men there too, and it was just so calm, and everybody was so harmonious, and they worked together on things. And so I know that's dreamy and that can't be how it is, but I mean, it could be updated version of that if she won. All right, so if I still have your attention with me, here we go. So my son mostly talked about Bernie Sanders when he got home from school, and then I would talk about him. But like I said, I was so dead set on Hillary Clinton being president. She was running at the time, and I was reading biographies on her, and I want to do another video on her because she's really dedicated her whole life service to politics, and she totally is qualified for the job, but unfortunately I did not see it in my lifetime. I hope I do get to see a woman be president in my lifetime. Now, Bernie, I kind of pushed aside. I talked about him. I looked him up, and I kind of was like, I defaulted to my belief system of my second half of my life, because my first half of my life, we didn't talk politics. My family didn't vote. We didn't, do anything or talk about anything like that. It wasn't until I met my husband that it started coming up. And that started coming up also at the same time during the downfall of MTV, because I was watching a lot of MTV at the time because I liked music videos. And President Bill Clinton at the time was running for president, and they had him come on MTV, and he was playing his saxophone, and that was the way I related to him. Yeah. So between that combination and meeting my husband that same time of the 90s, I started becoming aware of things, voting, and the power of voting and the power of research your voting. It takes time, but it's really important. It's really important to watch debates, even though a lot of it's you just want to turn away from. But if you watch some debates, that's how I got more information on Hillary Clinton, was by watching her debate while I was in New York again temporarily. I was watching, I think she was running for senator in New York. I forgot, but she won. And I was watching, this was after she was done being first lady, I'm pretty sure. So she's had that experience too. She's had a ton of experience. And then I had my husband watch the debate, and he was really thoroughly impressed. This was at the time when debates really counted. And he actually voted for her too. And I don't want to say actually, because he voted for Kamala Harris too. But at the time, Hillary was a hard sell because we were growing up in Trump land, especially me on Long Island, New York. You might think all of New York is a blue zone, but Red Island is all suburbia. And a lot of the outer suburban subdivisions are hardcore, I paid too many taxes. I don't want to pay for the schools, even though you have schools, your kids are in the schools. I don't want to pay all these taxes. And, they can't see past you're doing good or you're doing great. It's not harming you to have these programs like SNAP or Medicare or Medicaid, because it's helping others. And when you help others, crime is down, mental health is better, but talking to them is like talking to a MAGA now. So I grew up in this Donald Trump-like world, and I don't want to say it was his world because I was by no means paying attention to him, but the boys my age were, and they were emulating him. They wanted to have his power and his money so they could be with girls like he claimed. It's all smoke and mirrors anyway, it turns out, right? But this is how I grew up, and this is how the 80s was. So back to Bernie Sanders. Thanks for hanging in there. He's still in the spotlight. I have no idea how old he is. I don't know, 82? I hope I have that much energy when I'm his age. I really do. And his faculties are all in place. I mean, he can think, he can, he's got the energy, he can talk, the crowd feels his energy. And I was just, all I can think about is how my kids knew about this years ago. And now the movement has grown this strong. You know, things take time, unfortunately. Like back then, to people like myself that was growing up, I just thought there's no way this man can make it into the mainstream political, you know, like president or vice president because of his beliefs, because I was so brainwashed. That it took educated people around me to explain things and plant seeds to me and talk about things and to see things. And now Bernie is still going, and I could see why. And I could see why the younger kids liked that. And I could see why they still like it. And I could see why my age likes it, because it just makes sense, and it has made sense. I wish I was paying more attention, but now I am. And the fact that he was with Zohran Mamdani, who won the prelims in a landslide for New York City, and they're about to have the real election very soon. So, like, the MAGAs are freaking out. And I say MAGAs, I don't mean Republicans, like middle Republicans. Like, you could be like MAGA and you're just like with this administration, which is killing people literally, and like trying to get people out of the way by scaring them and locking them up. You could be here and be a Republican. You could be here and be a Republican. You could be here and be a Democrat, Republican. I was kind of there when I was like, my family was young. I was like looking at both, you know, party stuff, reading what, you know, who's going to pass what. And then ironically, I moved to the left more instead of to the right, because I saw that the right was against abortions. I saw how far they took women's rights, but I just so thought Roe v. Wade was in place that could never be touched. I just was never a conformist, so I've also voted independent. I'll share with you, I voted Republican years ago because, especially if there was a woman, I would vote Republican, because I would never think that a woman would act the way these women are acting in the administration right now, without a heart, without talking, just like they're AI. I call me crazy, but I just didn't think women would be like that. So no matter if they were a Republican or Democrat, I would vote for them across the board. And, you know, I'd get laughed at because I share everything. But, you know, that was my go-to at the time, to see more women in. And even when Nikki Haley was running this year and trying to get Trump out, which he shouldn't even been in the race, technically, because he's a criminal, should be in jail. Let's just remind people of that. It was killing me that there was no way I was going to vote for her, and this was when Biden was still running and Nikki Haley was throwing her hat into the race, and I was like, whew, this is going to be tough. I'm going to have to not vote for her. And there was no way I was voting for her. But it was tough for me because I want to see a woman president. And this is why I'm sharing this with you, is because, you know, I've heard, a woman apparently can't win because Kamala Harris couldn't win. And then I hear that debunked, like it had nothing to do with Kamala Harris. So we'll see what happens. So I always take the default mode for me is, what are people going to vote for? Because it's imperative that we win now. So what are people going to vote for across the board, any age? So this year, before Zohran Mamdani was in my view, my son's girlfriend, who lives in England, she had mentioned to him about Zohran. And I had never heard of him. So I looked him up because I don't live in New York anymore. I was born and raised there, but I've lived in North Carolina the second half of my life, and that's where my kids were born and raised. And so I looked him up, and he said, so how do you feel about this? Like, we really feel he's gonna like take all this, win in a landslide. And I was like, I sure hope so. And I mean that. But I was like defaulted to the old white guy, Cuomo, who was, I know he abuses women. I have to, so I'm not saying that's okay, but I just defaulted to that, which, I'm scared Long Island people are going to go for this Cuomo guy because, it's a default mechanism because he could probably win again, and then it turned out he lost by a lot. And so again, I have seeds that get planted in me from my children, and it takes a while for them to grow, sometimes years, sometimes months. But it takes a while, just like the seeds I planted in my children growing up when we'd have discussions. But we all grow in our own way. So I want to put that out there for everybody that watches, because I'm getting comments now, and I love that. Thank you for taking your time. And I could see we have more in common than we don't. So I started listening to my kids years ago about big issues when I thought maybe I was right. But I would let them sit with me, and then I would see they were right on big issues. And that's just naming a few here. So I hope the norm has changed for what I default to as, oh my God, we definitely have to pick a winner, because if we lose, there's too much at stake here now. That's what it's come to now. We have to pick a winner. But I think we have to pick the person that's going to do the right thing, because we all feel the opposite right now. We need to listen to the next generation, which is our kids, and start opening our minds to how the world is now and how much the world has changed, and how accepting everybody is so much more loving than not accepting everybody. It just makes sense that we all be acceptance and inclusive of one another. And it's never been a more important time than now. I could go on about this, male-female Trump world where they, are hiring people that have, affairs and sexual abuse settlements, like our president himself, like Pete Hegseth, like people in the Senate that have witnessed abusive, like Linda McMahon had turned her eye from sex abuse in the wrestling that she ran with her husband, in the cabinet now in charge of education, like LT in charge of the new physical exam tests that they're bringing back to our kids' schools. I mean, they're all just sex abuses like Trump and Epstein. They're all different scales, and they all protect each other. And let me tell you, always go with your instinct. And I also want to say one other thing is, as a female, and I know it's hard for men or boys not to understand this, because I see people like screaming things at the victims for Epstein. Oh, you loved being jetted around. And no, no. Sexual abuse and luring is real, and you don't recover from that. And I have to tell you, you must believe the girls and the women. It's just give them the benefit of the doubt like you would the females in your life, like your daughter, your wife, your sister, your mother. Just all these things that they never received, and they constantly don't receive justice. Okay? Because it's people that feel that way that allows this behavior to continue, and it does. It has since I've been born. And it will continue unless we all stand up and speak the truth, okay? Let's circle back around to Brooklyn with Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani on the oligarchy tour. You know, that word oligarchy, for those of us that did not move on to college, I'm not the college type. I didn't know what oligarchy, I never heard that word before this term. And so like when I went to go protest and I was making signs and I saw them on the signs, I was like, what does that word mean? You know, there was a lot of words that I was introduced to this year. And then I realized it's these billionaire people that want things their way and they pay for things to be their way. So yeah, that's a big word. And don't feel funny. Again, I'm so truthful sometimes. It blows back air on me. But that's the truth. I did not know what that word meant, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. And if you keep listening to me, you'll find that I'm not embarrassed to say anything. I'm really not. I'm just human. So yeah, I know what that means. So now you know what that means. And the main message today here was listen to other people. You know, especially your kids. They'll teach you a lot. My kids have taught me a lot. Sure, I have had to learn to keep myself whole and peaceful. Yeah. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day and night. And I love you all. Thanks for spending time with me. And I'll see you soon.